Welcome to Policy on Demand. I'm Sindhu Blume. $6 billion. That is the amount currently allocated for energy projects under the Qualifying Advanced Energy Tax Credit Program, which was created by the Inflation Reduction Act. Under the program, if you are a manufacturer and invest in qualifying advanced energy projects, and we'll get into what those are, you can apply for a tax credit of 30% for certain costs and 6% for others. Joining me from our New York studio to get into the details of this credit is Randa Barsoum. Randa, thanks so much for joining me.
Hi, Sindhu. Great to be here.
So, Randa, I want to point out that this is round two of this program. The initial amount allocated was $10 billion. Can you refresh our memory on what the Section 48C credit is and who is it intended to benefit?
Sure. So Section 48C, Cap C, was enacted initially in 2009. The program was refunded through the Inflation Reduction Act in August of 2022, giving it an additional $10 billion of funding for credits. The first round of funding just completed on March 31st, 2024, with $4 billion being allocated to taxpayers. Over 100 companies received allocations through that program. Just to give you an idea, there was $42 billion that was requested during that process and $4 billion that was ultimately allocated. The Notice 2024-36, which was just released a couple of weeks ago, outlines the details of the different projects that would be eligible for funding for this particular credit. Generally, though, it falls into three categories. The first category has to do with clean manufacturing. That relates to the re-equipping, expanding, or establishing of a facility to produce components or other eligible products that go into clean energy projects. The IRS and the Department of Energy have stated that there are some priority areas that they're focused on. So things like clean hydrogen, clean grids, electric heat pumps, solar, wind, nuclear, sustainable aviation fuel. So those are the areas where if a project is creating a component that goes into one of those particular areas, either as a component or production of something that then ultimately goes into those types of areas of producing energy, those would be qualified projects. The second area has to do with critical minerals. There are 50 critical minerals on the list, as well as certain critical materials that have been published by the Department of Energy. These are for projects that are going to re-equip, expand, or establish a processing, refining, or recycling of those particular critical minerals or materials. And then the last category has to do with decarbonization. That particular category, any company, any manufacturing or industrial company can apply for. Effectively, if they retrofit their current manufacturing facility to reduce carbon emissions by at least 20%, those projects can also be qualified for funding.
In the amount that is allocated, there is some that is designated for Section 48C energy communities. What are those communities and what is their significance?
That's right. So 40% of the total $10 billion was allocated for energy communities. So of the $6 billion, 40% of that will also be designated for energy communities. Effectively, those are communities that have been established as coal mine areas, areas where there may have been, processing of, dirty energy, so to speak, so oil and gas related areas, underserved areas, effectively. And so this really is intended to further some of the policy objectives around these rules, to really invest in some of these underserved areas that have been abandoned, over the years as, mining and other things have sort of left certain areas.
Okay, and applicants for this credit have to submit a concept paper to the Department of Energy through its 48C portal. Can you give us an update on that, about the portal, what the concept paper entails, and deadlines? What deadlines are involved here?
Sure. So the concept paper, it's a 5-page paper. Effectively, what they're asking companies to do is to lay out, a description of what the project is, what its stated objectives are, how it fits within one of the three categories that they're looking for. Part of what they're looking for are things like, how is this project going to benefit the community that it's going to be, that where the money is going to be invested. So both workforce engagement as well as kind of benefits for the overall community. It's looking to understand how the project's going to benefit the U.S. supply chain. So is the product that's being produced something that's not currently produced in the U.S.? So, does it help to strengthen the U.S. supply chain in one form or another? So it's basically a 5-page paper to give the Department of Energy a good idea of what the project entails and what its stated objectives are and how the money is essentially going to be used. From there, the Department of Energy will evaluate all of the submissions that it will receive. The deadline, so the portal is actually going to be opening on May 22nd, so in a couple of days. That was recently announced through a Department of Energy webcast that was held on May 16th. From May 22nd, taxpayers will have 30 days to submit their concept paper. So the deadline is effectively 5 p.m. on June 21st. Once that is submitted, the Department of Energy will evaluate all of the submissions that it receives. And from there, they will make some decisions and send out letters of encouragement, or letters of discouragement, effectively telling folks, if you get a letter of encouragement, hey, we like your project, we'd like you to submit the full application. Companies that do get a letter of discouragement can still apply, but it is likely that they will be on the bottom of the list, so to speak, in terms of priority to get this allocation. Once those letters go out, taxpayers will have 50 days to submit their application. That application is significantly longer. It's about 35 pages, where they will need to get more in-depth about each of those areas around the supply chain support, workforce and community engagement, how the GHG emissions will be reduced, and by how much, and what support they have for all that. And so 50 days to submit that application. We're expecting that to happen sometime in, mid-fall, that those applications will be due, and that we're expecting the Department of Energy to send those letters of encouragement or discouragement by the end of the summer, early fall timeframe.
Okay, so it's the concept paper, then you find out the likelihood of proceeding, and then the longer application.
Correct. And then from there, once those applications are submitted, it's a waiting game, but we've been told that the IRS will send out allocation letters on January 15th, 2025. So everyone should know by January 15th, 2025, if they got an allocation of that $6 billion. From there, then, the work starts in terms of the companies that do receive the allocation. There is a 2-year period by which those companies that receive allocations need to certify that they are ready to get started on their project. So that would include permits and other things that would need to be in place that, before they can actually begin construction, so to speak. And then another 2 years are available to actually place the project into service. So effectively, 4 years from January 15, 2025 is the window to get these projects placed into service.
Okay. And one thing I'm curious about is, I know you've been speaking with companies, and I want to find out, first of all, what actions companies intending to apply for this credit should take now, but also of the folks that you've spoken with, where are they in the process and how involved are they? Are they getting ready to submit the, are they prepared for the concept paper? What stage are they at?
Yeah, it's really all over the map. So I think the first step that companies should make sure they do is to register on the portal site. When they register, they're going to get an ID number that will need to be included with the submission, and that will be sort of the number that will track through for their concept paper process. I'd say many companies, you have the full range. There are some folks from round 1 that did not get funding that are looking to submit for round two. So essentially they're 90% of the way there, maybe have to tweak their concept papers, adjust them for the round two priorities. There are some folks that haven't even gotten started. And so what I would say is, it's important to evaluate where you are in the process and what your plan and strategy is going to be. Are you going to have someone internally develop that concept paper? Do you have the expertise to do that? Or are you going to need some external support from an outside provider? And if so, it's going to be important to engage quickly because that portal is opening up in 2 days essentially, or a day or so. So it's going to be important to really get engaged and get that process started.
And you said that even if a company receives a letter of discouragement, they could still go through that lengthier process going forward. So that's not even here yet, but is that 35-page application, is that something that companies could prepare for now, or that you're seeing, yes, they are starting to prepare for this?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of the same information that's going to be based on the concept paper will include. It just really gets more expanded. So, it's never too early to get started, really. It's just a matter of making sure you have the resources and the time to get that process started and the support, whether it's within the organization or through an outside provider to help you.
Randa, anything else you want to add?
Yes, actually, just important to note that Section 48C credits can be monetized. They can be sold. So for companies that are thinking they may not apply because when they place these projects in service, they may not be in a taxable income position, they actually can sell the credit and monetize it and get the cash right away. So that shouldn't discourage a company from applying for these credits if they think they're eligible and have a good project that's worth applying for.
Randa, thank you so much for walking through this and getting into some details about a lot of what I'm expecting are going to be administrative issues. So thank you.
Thank you.
Be sure to watch our other energy and climate related content through the links in the description of this episode and on the Policy on Demand website. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Take care.